has managed to capture the 80s far better than I have, because I mean I rely on my memory, which is pretty terrible. But Neil, you rely on something else, which is your trusty camera.
My trusty camera, yes, I do rely on that, but also rely on the fact that I managed to write down where I took the pictures. Otherwise, I wouldn't remember.
That's true, because I mean, how can it be 30 years on? But 30 years on. Yeah, it's another world. Tell us what you remember about the 80s in this city, because I remember it being tremendous, but I can't really tell you why.
I remember it being very tough at the beginning, and it kind of got better as it went on. I think the very early 80s were kind of, I don't know, quite dour, and everything was done on a shoestring, and I can remember not having two bob to sort of rub together, and coming out of university and sort of starting off on everything. It was kind of almost like you kind of made and got on with it sort of vibe. But as it went on, it was a decade, I think, of great originality and great kind of a lot of things happened in the 80s that I don't think it's ever repeated itself.
Do you see it as quite a fun decade? Because I look, I mean, I was young, I suppose it helped, but I look back and think, actually, that was fun. The music was fun, it was cheesy, it was happy. Nothing in the 80s possibly took itself too seriously, because it could.
Exactly.
Look at us, look at what we look
like.
I
know, exactly. No, that was definitely the case. I mean, and a lot of the pictures in this exhibition, which I was working for a magazine. The first magazine I worked for was Flexipop, which was a kind of bit of a strange magazine. It was a very sort of culty magazine, really. It was a bit like Private Eye of the music industry. Our kind of remit was to not take it seriously at all, and my kind of brief every time I went out to do a shoot was to try and come back with something completely unusual. I used to carry around a bag full of sort of props from joke shops that I would sort of produce at the drop of a hat and try and persuade people to wear. I had a pair of orange rabbit ears that I tried to get Ian McCulloch out of Echo and the Bunnyman to wear.
Who probably does take himself quite seriously, I would.
Well, he did, but actually he very nearly did it. It was strange, really, because he sort of said, "Oh, I don't know, I'd like to, but they'll kick me out of the band if I do that." But then he proceeded to agree to let me buy a bunch of carrots from a greengrocer's, and he posed with a plate full of carrots with all the ends on instead, which
isn't bad.
No, it was very good.
It may well be the only rock and roll photograph containing a bowl of carrots. It must be in history.
Yeah, and I think he probably would have been better off with the orange rabbit ears.
He may well have been. The people that you photographed, I mean, some of them were the biggest names of the 80s. Did you realise how important these names would be? Because some really have stood the test of time.
Yeah, they have. I didn't really, because quite a lot of them were friends of mine. I kind of fell into taking pictures really because I went to school with Spandau Ballet, and they were a school band. And
if you want to, I can't top what you just said, but I think the mother of the drummer,
John,
used to work in my school as an assistant. I think, and we all said, so you see, our claim to fame was that you see the lady there who works in the maths department.
Lady.
She's the mother of the drummer from Spandau Ballet.
Which school was it?
It was a school in Camden, JFS.
Oh right, okay, yeah, probably was actually, because they lived near there.
Yeah, well then there we go. You're glad you've.
But not only them, but I also madness. I went to primary school and secondary school with a couple of them. So it was weird that a lot of people that I grew up with ended up in bands or in the music industry, and it was really that how I came to sort of take pictures in the first place. It wasn't what I was going to do. I was going to work at the BBC.
Oh well, you made a good choice. You made a very good choice. This exhibition, I mean, clearly, I suppose you must have gone through what many of us go through when we look at old photos. Suddenly, memories come flooding back. What had you forgotten that was suddenly reinvigorated in your mind, having seen these again? Well, just explain some of the pictures we can see.
Well, the Jam picture, which is the picture that we've used for the poster and for the invite. When I came across that, I'd actually completely forgotten that I'd taken it. I'd never printed it before. This
is them in front of a very large brick wall with a huge sign saying "Quiet, please." I mean, I'm guessing, is this in a studio somewhere?
It's in the loading bay of Nomis Studios, which was it's over in just behind Olympia, and it's where all the bands used to their rehearsal studios.
Simon Backwards.
Yes,
by the way,
that's right. Simon Napier Bell, and I think I shot that off the back of a FlexiPop shoot, but I can't actually remember who I shot it for. I'd never printed it before, and a lot of these they're black and whites that in those days. When I shot for magazines, it was usually in colour, and it was all shot in colour transparency. And when you deliver that up to the magazine, I never got them back. But I used to try and shoot a roll of black and white or a couple of rolls if I had time, if I could persuade them to do it. And most of these are those black and white images that I did for myself.
How easy was it to get people? Because it's interesting what you said about Ian earlier on, because there will be people who will always be. Well, let's just say cautious about how photos will look in the future. I think even more so now, because in a sense, I think we used to think magazines were you throw them away, you'll never see the photo again.
Yeah. I think, well, as you said, that decade, I think it was fun. You know, people didn't take themselves too seriously. It was amazing that these people agreed to do it. Like you said, I don't think the headlining acts of today would do half the things that I managed to get people to do.
Or they'd do it on their own terms. They'd do it through Twitter, and they'd say, "Look, this is me. I've done this, and I'm in control." And then, of course, I can always delete it, and it will quietly go away.
I mean, I shot Paul Weller and Jam a couple of times in that time, and I got them to. I mean, Paul posed with a gun in his mouth. He dressed up as a nutty professor, and I got the other two to tie him to a chair one time and gag him. The picture of Edwin Collins in the exhibition, he's posing with a rubber chicken, which, you know, it was out of this bag of sort of stuff that I carried around with me to try and get people. I mean, I had people that refused, kind of looked at me as if I was really, you know, not all there and wouldn't do it. But invariably they did. They were because they didn't take themselves too seriously, and I think that a lot of that's been lost now. I mean, our kind of thing then was, you know, it was fun. It should be fun. Pop
and no PR people nearby, I guess, saying, Neil, don't, you can't take...
No, invariably they were only too happy to kind of, you know, to do something slightly different, I think. I mean, there's... And this archive is, there are boxes and boxes that I haven't even gone through yet. And it was quite a cathartic experience finding all these images again and stuff that I'd forgotten, and I'd dwelled for too long on stuff that I'd lost. I'd lost a lot of stuff which I knew when I delivered them up to magazines I never saw them again. They never came back, and I thought people like Gary were always saying to me, "You've got to do something with your archive," and I'd be like, "Oh well, you know, I haven't really got what you think I've got." But actually, when I started getting them out, I found stuff that you know, that I'd really forgotten about.
Have some of the subjects been along to the gallery?
Well, John Keeble was there last night, the drummer whose mum...
Well, ask him about his mum.
I will next time I see him.
Did she work in the maths department at JFS? Because we always traded on that. I hope that was true.
It probably was. Yeah. Gary Kemp was supposed to be there and didn't make it in the end, and Kate Garner. It was there was a few people there. Flid out of Animal Nightlife was there.
Animal Nightlife,
yeah, wow. Great band. Christos from Blue Rondo a la Turk was there. It was a kind of a mixture, but it was bitterly cold, so there was about 50, sort of 60 people there.
Happy days. Yeah, certainly happy days remembered. Yeah. This is on at the Great British.
Yeah.
At 4 North Audley Street.
14, actually.
Oh, it's 14.
Yes.
14 North Audley Street in Mayfair, so in the heart of the city. And how long is it? How long is it on, Neil?
Well, it was going to be on for about 2 months, but George Hammer, the guy that owns the restaurant, is so over the moon with it that he got me to add another 12 images to it from the original 20, and he now wants to keep it up. He says he's going to keep it up for about a year, but we'll see.
How wonderful. So, and people can just go along and have a look.
Go along, have a cup of coffee, and yeah.
My 80s Through the Lens is what it's called. It's an exhibition of photographs by my guest tonight, Neil Mackenzie Matthews. As I say, the Great British, 14 North Audley Street in Mayfair. It's great to see you. Thank you so much for coming. I can't wait to go and have a look, and I must go because
you should.
It is my era. It's an era that I think we all think we own and we possess, and it's ours. And I suppose in a kind of a way, we all got out of it what we did. So it's very personal to those of us who grew up in that era. Neil, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Just give us a website people want to find out more, because I know some of it's online, isn't it?
It is, yeah. All of the images are online on www.my80s.com, all one word. And there are a couple of extra ones that didn't get on the wall but are part of the archive.